Hello again, Guyana, and welcome to another edition of Facing the Nation. I'm Malika Ramsey. Thank you so very much for joining us. Last week we had a good one, and again, as you know, I always like to come here the following week, and thank you very much for your feedback. I know a lot of persons were really interested, and you were edified, and you were really appreciative of most of the things that Mr. Norton himself said last week, so I know you got a lot. So in a sense, we'll be continuing on this week, because one of the things we spoke about last week is local government election and the election season, election period. We talked about youth in politics and youths in leadership, and I plan to continue that this week. Even before I introduce my guest, just to remind you, we're still in the month of education and the month of Amerindian heritage. We're still trying our best to get persons from both sectors and both ministries to come and talk to us, but it's proving difficult. However, we still have a lot to talk about and a lot to focus on, especially since we're in the local government election season. And against that backdrop, it's a pleasure to welcome to Facing the Nation today. I think it's for the first time, and the reason I'm saying I think, because this is one of another person. I have one of the twin here with me on the program, and viewers, those of you who follow me know I'm very fascinated with twins. So I always have to mention that a few months ago we had Astell Collins on our program. He spoke about the PYARG and so on. It is my pleasure to have on the program today the other maybe half of him, the other twin, Astell Collins, who is going to talk to us today about local government elections, his role, his functions. I know those of you who follow him, not only on social media, but follow him generally, would see that he is, and I described him on Facebook earlier as an aspiring Georgetown City Councillor. He'll correct me if that is not accurate, but it's my pleasure to welcome to Facing the Nation for the first time, Mr. Astell Collins. Welcome to you,
Thank you
sir.
very much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Great.
I think
Am I correct in saying you're aspiring?
correct. Yes.
Correct. Very. Yes, it is the first one. It is not the first interview I'm having with him, mind you, but it's the first one on this program, and we're really grateful that he has accepted our invitation to come and talk about that. Again, those of you who follow me on social media, you know earlier I also said that Mr. Denroy Tudor, he's also aspiring, would be on the program. We will try to do some shifting and see if we can get him on when Alistair and I would have had some of our conversation. Astell and I would have had some of our conversation. We'll try to take a break and squeeze him in. But for now, we're going to chat with Astell. And you have been a public youth figure for some time now. I was even saying this to him before we went on air, viewers, that now I'm going to try to distinguish them by saying, okay, is one a politician now? Astell, let's talk about that. What prompted you to jump into the race, for want of a better word, of course, jump into the race for local government elections? Let's talk about the constituency, all of those things surrounding your decision.
Thank you very much for having me and for the question. My mentor, Dr. Miles Monroe, would have not be pleased to hear me say I'm a politician, because there's a distinct difference.
Okay.
A leader is one who's concerned with the affairs of the state, and the politician, for the lack of a better definition, they say it's only interested in the next election. A leader is concerned about the next generation. A politician is interested in only the next election. But leadership it transcends just the boundaries of politics. And I have been involved actively in teaching leadership development. So I am coming with that background, so to speak, or that foundation, where I understand that leadership is not manipulation but inspiration. And for me to get into the political race, it was someone from my community who said I simply have to do it. So it's not that I was interested in any way, shape, or form, but I just responded to the need of the community. And hence I'm running in constituency 3, which involves Prashat Nagar, Campbellville, Northeast, Northwest, Bel Air Springs, Bel Air Gardens. So that is my constituency. But my desire to give back came when I returned from South Africa.
Okay.
In South Africa, I learned the concept of Ubuntu. UBUNTU, which simply means I am because we are. What affects you will also affect me, and what diminish me will also diminish you. We are all one, intrinsically connected. And the fact that our very motto speaks of one people in one nation with a shared destiny I believe that my contribution to the leadership fabric of Guyana is required at this time. And since my return, it was about 5 years ago, I've done close to 700 speaking engagements, leadership development from military, police, schools, the NOC, the prisons, you name it.
Yeah.
So I believe that coming into the race, so to speak, and I'm not one who is in competition with another. I believe I am simply a man who wants to give back to the community from which I came, to see how best whatever I would have garnered could have impeded or affected the lives of those who are living there. So my desire is to see change, is to become an agent of change. Dr. Monroe also says we are transforming followers into leaders and leaders into agents of change. So I believe that I am simply there as an agent of change to see what level of transformation that the community can benefit from simply by my participation in this race.
All right. I'm going to come back to you on leadership, and I'm happy that you talked about the leadership, our society's leadership fabric. Let's talk about the community for a bit, the constituency, some of the things that are happening in the community, other things that you think, because you already said that you've been doing work in the community. Let's talk about other things that can happen. I would want to also speak about because and viewers, we always know in politics, in anything, it's never a one-man show, it's always a team. I would also like to talk about the team that is supporting you and the team that you are supporting. Very good.
I'm a part of the APNU, specifically from PNC, and I had started a group, the Good Life Campbellville group, which we now have over 100 members. But beyond that, Campbellville is a community that I believe it's multi-ethnic, multi-religious. So for those who are Hindu, Namaste. For those who are Muslims, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Jai Rastafari. So we have an eclectic group that consists of specifically Campbellville, Prashad Nagar, Bel Air Springs, Bel Air Gardens. Well, I'm resident in Campbellville. And I believe that we have to model the change that we're seeking. It is not enough for us to say we've dug drains, we have clean carpets, but then the citizenry are separated, are divided, are not communicating on a level that they should be. We have, as a nation, been reduced to focus on someone's ethnic makeup.
Yeah.
And I think that my desire is to literally see a shift in our consciousness, where we do not see people's houses in terms of their physical makeup, but we see the humanity in them. For example, Namaste simply means I salute the divinity within you. So if we have that consciousness that I am more than my ethnic makeup, I am more than my religious beliefs, I am more than my political persuasions, I believe as a nation, we as a community or a constituency can be a microcosm of what is possible for the nation. I think that Guyana is a paradise. And it's only because of the discovery of oil we are now seeing the world putting view on Guyana. But I fell in love with Guyana when I lived in South Africa. And hence I learned the concepts.
Even though you were born here.
Even though I was born here, I fell in love when I left. And you find a lot of people, there's a disconnect with the majesty of Guyana. It's like, dear land of Guyana, of rivers and plains, made rich by the sunshine and lush by the rain, set gem-like and fair between mountains and seas. Your children salute you, dear land of the free. All sons of one mother Guyana the free, one land of six peoples united and free. More worthy our heritage, land of the free. We have celebrated over 50 years of independence, but yet are we free? The question one has to ask is, am I free? And what is freedom? If we define freedom to be the ability to do what you want to do when you want to do it, whom you want to do it, then we are still not free. But freedom is rather responsibility and management. And the first resource we're given to manage is time. Mr. Tudor, whatever you mismanage, you will lose. Time is, you can give me $1 billion. I can waste it, but I can get it back. If I lose 10 minutes of my time, Right now, we are investing time. I don't want
Yeah.
to say we're spending it. We're investing
Investing.
time. But we will never get this time back. So the greatest resource you're given to manage is time. Life is literally spelled Time. So I believe that there need to be a consciousness about the importance of time. Because even to spend money, you need time. I can have the resources at hand, but if I don't have the time to spend it, I can't spend it.
Indeed.
So, and the way I use my time affects the body I have, affects the mind. What makes somebody an engineer is just what he spent his time studying. What makes somebody a doctor is what he spends his time studying. So all the education faculties does is help you to navigate what to read, how to spend, how to invest your time. So I believe that as a people, there have to be a coming together. But I think we are afraid. For 23 years, we've been economically castrated. We were placed far below our human potential. It was Terence who was a slave in 154 BC. He said in Latin, "Umo sum humanini ilmi ilium puto," which simply means I am a human being and nothing human can be alien to me. What you find that they had a vicious system in place that reduced our humanity.
Before saying system.
I try not to denigrate because we are above that. In this new dispensation of political leadership, we have to rise above mudslinging and so forth.
But I'm happy that you talked about rising above mudslinging. Unfortunately, I'm not saying we're not capable of rising
Correct.
above it. Unfortunately, we have, and to use your word, we have inherited a system where that is the in thing. And now you are in the local government system. APNU, Astell Collins, and his team are not the only ones running. You
Right.
have the other side. And to
Correct.
be exact here, we have the PPP. Have you at all, whether it be in the running up to these local government elections or even in your life in terms of leadership work, have you endured or experienced, for want of a better word, any of the sort of mudslinging? And even though I know you said you are not in competition with anyone, the competition is there. The reality is the competition is there. Even if you have not experienced that, how do you plan to handle that as it may be new in terms of political life for you?
That would be challenging for me. However, and that is what has driven, it's like a beauty, like a pageant. It is not always the best that goes. Even in singing in the choir, it's not always the best that sings, it's the one who's most committed. But it takes courage to actually even enter the life. It was Maya Angelou who says, courage is the most important of all virtues because without courage, you cannot practice any other virtue consistently. But the opposite of courage is not fear, but conformity. One of the greatest challenges in life is to be yourself in a world that is trying to make you like everyone else. But it brings me back to the idea of fear. It was said recently that our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate.
Right.
Our deepest fear is that we are more powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God, and your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightening about shrinking so that other people wouldn't feel insecure around you. We were all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. So I hope that by joining in the race, it is no longer defined. And that's another thing that we were bombarded by the idea that politics is dirty. But the very people who will tell you politics is filthy and dirty, they are the ones who are advocating and they are aggressively going after it. So we as a people have been challenged not even to think that we can run for public office or run for leadership positions. And another thing too, leadership is not a position or is it a title. So I hope that I bring to the fore that it is you discovering who you are, refining who you are, and then becoming a person of service. Martin Luther King said not everyone can be famous, but everyone can be great because greatness is a matter of service. So we have to infect our young people or the next generation to have a mindset that I am entering into the race, not for the trappings of the political office, but to see how best I can serve. And only a person of value can add value. If I ask the difference between a diamond and a pebble, the diamond is more valuable simply because the diamond is rare. And we have to understand our individual value in order to appreciate our collective value as a nation.
Okay.
So I believe, okay.
No, go ahead. Well said. I'm about to bring in Mr. Tudor here, who has received some, to use the younger folks' language and the social media language, he has received some shade a few moments ago from Astell. So what we're going to do, viewers, and I know I may be catching my operator a bit off guard, but he has a forgiving heart, so he'll forgive me on this one. So we'll take a very quick break and we'll come back to more of Facing the Nation. Of course, it will then be Astell Collins and Denroy Tudor. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with Facing the Nation. For those of you who joined earlier, of course, you know, this is a continuation of our conversation. We began with Mr. Astell Collins. Now we're continuing with Denroy Tudor. Today we're still on politics and leadership and so on. And, you know, we've been doing that for the last month on this program. So we're continuing on that note. And as I did say earlier, I feel it's very appropriate because we are in election season. I think we're going to be in election season for a very long time because we're campaigning for local government election, and election has become such a big part of our culture in this country that, you know, the regional and general elections are constitutionally due in the year 2020. So by the end of 2018 and going into 2019, we'll just be in that election and political state of mind. Nothing is wrong with staying in that state of mind, but, you know, trying to do it in a very decent and a productive way that will benefit our people, benefit this nation, especially our young people. Denroy Tudor, welcome to Facing the Nation.
Thank you so much, Malika.
All right.
Hi, Astell.
Hey, how are you?
It's good to see that they're cordial to each other after that bit of shade throwing. But as I said, we've gotten a mouthful, and of course, Astell will still be jumping in every now and again. But I would want the viewers to know, because viewers, this is basically one of the introductions of Denroy to the public, and of course you to him. People out there are knowing that he's working. But we're talking today about your decision to run for local government elections. Let's talk about your constituency, the communities, the areas in which it entails, and what would have pushed you to get involved and so on, and your whole aspiration and look toward self-development in terms of doing it through politics.
All right. Thank you so much, Malika, once again. For me, Southramville has been my home for the last 24 years. I'm turning 25 in December, so basically all of my life. I've known, yeah. So all of my life I would have known growing up within that area. The entire constituency I think it's one of the biggest constituencies because it runs from the Lamaha Canal. That's inclusive of the residents of the A to Z squatting scheme at the back there, and it runs all the way down to the Demerara River by Plastic City there.
Oh, that's large.
So we have to we constantly try to meet with all of the persons within our community. I'm pleased that within the last month, because I'm actually the PRO for the Southramville Women's Empowerment Group, and we actually would have opened up a community office right on the shopping plaza. Within the last 3 weeks, we had our first batch of students that are going to be learning different skills. We have persons that are learning cosmetology, crafts, different things, because we believe that that our people within our community can empower the young people and all of the people of South Veltan Industrial Estate.
We know before 2000, we're in oh gosh, I'm trying to get my maths correct, right. We know that in 2016, and of course I'll get Astell takes on this too eventually, 2016, we had local government elections in Guyana for the first time after about 2 decades.
Right.
Given that fact, Denroy, what are some of the problems that exist in your community? How can you not only fix it, but do it? Do you think that there is a way that you have the ability to get it done better even after the 2016 local government elections? Of course, now you're running, and I know it would have been in a dilapidated state for 2 decades, basically. How can you now, in a sense, try to fast forward the improvement and development of that constituency?
Well, the good thing about it that you mentioned the 2016 local government elections, because I believe it was a training ground for a lot of the councillors, that it was their first time, and a lot of the populace today, it was their first time actually experiencing local government elections. I believe that we already have projects along the way. Within the last 3 years, the councillors that were elected in the APNU, councillors that were put in, they were able to bring the city back to a state of order.
Okay.
Persons can walk the streets and not be scared that they're going to be smelling the rubbish of their neighbors or so. So we have already made that start. To fast track things, I know especially within my constituency, we're looking to ensure that we move from not simply a community center, well, a community office, but actually a community center, because we already would have earmarked a couple grounds already that we want to do some work. And more importantly, when you talk about South has always been plagued by flooding. Everybody cries of as soon as the sun moves away, it's flooding. But we're grateful that the level of water over the last 3 years, it has dropped significantly when it rains. And we know that once we continue to do heavy and strategic maintenance of our various outfalls within the constituency, and more importantly, listening to the people on the ground, and because I believe that they know best in most instances, because they know where exactly we might need to go.
You live in the house,
So I think as we continue to cooperate with them, we can get things done effectively.
All right. Viewers, even before I pull Astell back into the conversation, I should remind you, and even for those of you who don't know, Denroy Tudor is also an executive member of the youth arm of the People's National Congress Reform, which of course is the Guyana Youth and Student Movement. So he's not just being plucked from somewhere, and I see Astell mimicking him here. I can tell you, viewers, the energy from both gentlemen today is really a fun one. So it's not a case where he's just plucked from somewhere or just decided, hey, I want to do this. He is actually coming through organizations, and one of the things we keep talking about is the fact that young people need to be mentored and so on. So there is the possibility, and that exists for that to happen. Astell, let me just bring you back in. In listening to some of what Denroy said, as a person yourself who is also now coming into this, is the local government system a difficult one or a challenging one to, not only wrap your head around, but basically to get things done through?
I don't think I believe it's a system that has to be worked. You have to work the system. It's like plan your work and work your plan. The thing is, because it has been absent for 2 decades, it takes a little getting used to. But I believe as you have consistent and strategic education and information sharing, that the people themselves, because a lot of times the residents don't know where to put their complaints. They go directly to government or a minister or something like that, but
And
the local government is unnecessary. So the local government system now allows, and that's why I keep telling people, this government was not only sincere but authentic in its belief to give power to the people. It reminds me of when Nelson Mandela was released, and he says, "A man away too." It means power belongs to the people, and this government is sincere in giving power back to the people. And that is what the local government system is. If you think of it as just that you are now responsible for your community, basically that's it. So, and leadership is an address to give the blame. If there's a problem, that is what leadership is. It is someone who you can give your concerns to. So it is, that's why I say it takes a lot of courage. And I applaud you there. I didn't know you're that young.
I get this shit.
No.
Again, because of both your personalities, I must ask you both this question, and you beginning with you, Denroy. Are these local government elections, do you see it as training ground for you eventually into maybe propelling into national politics?
I believe every day is an opportunity to learn. So
such a political answer, but we're all politicians here, or at least budding ones.
Yeah, I believe it's an opportunity to learn. For me, I'm looking at another opportunity to serve, because I'm a big supporter of the notion of servant leadership. So for me, within South, I've been within the community. I've been trying as much as possible to hear the complaints, hear the issues on the ground, and understand fully, and even try to solve them. And the same community office that I mentioned, that I believe is a big accomplishment, and more so I can say that in another couple of weeks it's going to be the first ICT hub within that constituency.
Perfect.
So we're moving towards, for me, empowering our constituents, for them to understand that we want to be that launch pad, to be that area that persons will run to and know that they're excellent leaders and they can be effectively trained.
Perfect. How about you, Astell? It's a training ground for national politics for you.
Definitely. Wow. The short answer is yes.
Yes, but you know I'm not. I'm not going to take definitely from Astell. You know I'm going to pull for more.
Right. Leadership is a calling, and I think it's more of a response to a need. There was a story of a lion, if you have time. It says, "He who knows not and knows not that he knows not is a fool. Shun him. He who knows not and knows that he knows not is a child. Teach him. He who knows and knows not that he knows is asleep. Wake him. But he who knows and knows that he knows is a wise man. You should follow him." The lion is not the strongest animal. He's not the fastest animal. He's not the most intelligent. So that cancels our excuse for leadership. But the thing that separates the lion from everyone else is his attitude. And attitude is a product of your belief. If we believe, that's why Obama said, yes, we can. If you believe you can, you are then inclined to prepare yourself. And I think, yes, this is a level of preparation so that we are not arrogant enough to think that just by being young, we are capable of doing it. Or, it's not about youth, it's about heart. And I think I applaud you for saying that. It's almost of an echo of what I said earlier in terms of servants. And it's you have to have a heart of a servant. If serving is below you, then leadership is beyond you.
Correct.
All right, gentlemen, this has been a pleasure. I have to build, but I'll give you both, because and they have so much left in them, but I want to save some for the next time that I have them on here. We have to wrap up our conversation with you, but both of you, I would like to give you an opportunity to leave some, especially with our young men. I mean, to avoid discriminating, we generally talk about young people in society, but I think young women by themselves need a special mentoring and special attention, and I believe that young men by themselves also need special mentoring and special attention, because there are so many negatives and negative distractions in the world that it's taking some of our young men off of a path that they should really stay on. So for both of you, beginning with you, Denroy, I would like to ask at this time, and again, viewers, we will continue to hear from both of these gentlemen and so many other gentlemen in, whether it be in government, party, or whatever. We will continue to hear from all of them. But for now, I would like both of you to leave something with that you would like our young men maybe listening to you and don't think that they can aspire to be anything large in society. I'd like you to leave something in terms of confidence building and courage with them at this time before you come off. Denroy.
All right. What I would like to leave with them is just simply be willing to learn. For me, as as I've grown over time, I learned that you need to have a heart and be willing to know and to learn a bit more about life, because there's so much that is out there. I'm more so, if once you have the time, I would recommend you joining or community